Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today about the state of the university. You may remember that 1 year ago I laid out, with support from people throughout our university community, a vision for the future of UNH. Today, I'll update you on our goals, our 4 strategic priorities, and the initiatives that we've undertaken to pursue our strategy and to make the university an even stronger institution. But before we begin today's conversation, I'd like to welcome the UNH Chamber Singers, led by Alex Favazza, Director of Choral Activities and Lecturer in Music for the College of Liberal Arts, for a performance of the alma mater. And I'd like to ask you to please stand for that. Thank you, students, and thank you, Alex. We decided to use a new format for the State of the University this year. We will have people stationed in 4 corners of the room to talk with you about our strategic priorities and initiatives. Many of these initiatives have emerged from around the university, and the people at these stations will be the people who are leading them. I'll introduce them during my talk, and then after the Q&A, you're invited to go learn more about the various projects that we've launched to achieve our goals, and we'll leave time at the end for you to be able to do this. As a reminder, our strategic priorities and initiatives are the result of many months of work by hundreds of people around the campus, around the state, and beyond. The heart of our strategic aspiration is to be among the best public universities in the country. More specifically, to be among the top 25 public universities on the most important measures of academic performance. So here are the core metrics that we focused on in our current rankings relative to other public universities. So to begin, for context purposes, there are over 500 public universities in the United States. So the top 25 goal represents being among the top 5%. I believe that even just stating these goals has inspired people to think about UNH differently and to raise our sights a bit higher. We've updated the metrics based on new data that's available, and it's an interesting sort of good news, bad news situation. In most areas, our performance has improved. But in a few areas, our rankings have slipped due to improvements at other institutions. And this gives us all a sense of how competitive universities have become and how focused we will need to be to compete more effectively against other universities. One example of this is the graduation rate for Pell Grant students, who are our students of most limited means. While our graduation rate for these students increased slightly, our ranking dropped by 4 positions. Now, in fairness, this data is from students who joined us 6 years ago, so the changes that we have recently made are not yet reflected. We continue to be proud of our ranking on sustainability, which is in fact our highest ranking, as we are one of the top 2 public universities in this category. This ranking reflects decades of work by committed faculty, staff, and students. And as students, and all of us, are increasingly focused on sustainability, we believe that this will be an important recruiting tool. Student participation in high-impact educational practices, which includes things like internships, study abroad, research with faculty, and so on, is one of the metrics in which our ranking went up, even though our performance stayed the same. So that's an interesting one. We have major challenge in the percentage of first-year students in the top 10% of their class and in the ratio of administrative to instructional expenses. And we have initiatives in place to address those as well, including some high school visits that I'll tell you about shortly. So here are our 4 strategic priorities, and I'll organize the remainder of my talk around them. We've created a tremendous amount of momentum around each of them, and they will remain our focus for the foreseeable future. The first strategic priority I'd like to discuss is Embrace New Hampshire. Our aspiration, and you can see all of this language on the website, our aspiration is that UNH will make everyone in New Hampshire incredibly proud of their flagship public university. Students will grow up wanting to come to UNH, and it will be the first choice for the best and brightest students from New Hampshire and from around the world. We'll build collaborations that support New Hampshire's economy and quality of life, and will be a trusted, valuable, and consistent partner. So people who are in the Embrace New Hampshire corner of the room, Chris Clement will discuss our Business Advisory Council, which gives us the opportunity to have frank discussions with business leaders, with New Hampshire's business leaders. Kate Aiken will discuss our high school visits, and Micah Stark and Ken LaValle will discuss our survey of faculty and staff related to Embrace New Hampshire. We are doing an amazing amount of work that benefits the state, and Ken and Micah can tell you all about it. So in connection with the Embrace New Hampshire priority, we focused on building relationships with elected officials, business leaders, and high schools. In the past few months, I have visited Fall Mountain Regional High School, White Mountains Regional High School, Spalding High School, and Manchester Memorial High School. I often bring students with me, and when possible, they're alumni of the high school that we're visiting. We have visits scheduled to Bedford, Kennett, Windham, Winnicott, and Lebanon high schools, and there will be others as well. We hope through these visits to increase both applications to the university and the yield for accepted students. So to give you a feeling for what these visits are like, I'd like to share with you a video that was made on our recent visit to White Mountains Regional High School, which is in Whitefield, New Hampshire. For the last few months, we've been traveling around the state and visiting high schools, Northeast, South, and West. And it's really been eye-opening and so wonderful to connect with the students and the principals and the teachers. All right, good morning, Smart.
For us, we're rural, we're kind of isolated. And, we have to work with our students to ensure that they know that they are as competitive of graduates as any student graduating in New Hampshire.
There's a lot of need, a lot of opportunities.
By hearing the kids' stories and what their day-to-day kind of lives look like, that's what's going to be memorable for the students, and that's going to paint the picture of what life could be like at UNH.
It was great because they're just so natural and completely just open and honest.
I think that it's a more accurate representation of what the college is actually like, and it shows you more of what the students and community is like. I didn't know a lot of the statistics, and I thought that since there were 15,000 students, that there wouldn't be such a small, like 18-to-1 student to teacher ratio.
Well, the message that we would like students to take away from our visit today is that, number one, they certainly can go to college. And number two, that there's a really great set of opportunities at the University of New Hampshire. And number three, that they can almost certainly afford to come because of all the programs that we have of scholarships and financial aid at UNH.
I feel better about especially like the cost of college, knowing that there are the scholarships to help people who don't make a certain amount of money. It just puts me at ease knowing I can maybe afford college a bit more than I was able to before.
This is really one of our major components of Embrace New Hampshire. I don't see this initiative ending. I see us doing this for many years so that there can really be a nice connection between the university and the high schools in the state. So this reaction is pretty typical of the kind of enthusiasm that these visits have created, and I believe will continue to create. And I believe that they'll pay off both in more students wanting to come to the University of New Hampshire and just overall goodwill toward the university around the state. Our next strategic priority is enhance student success and well-being. This priority is focused on ensuring that students graduate on time and are engaged and ethical global citizens prepared to thrive not only in their first jobs, but really throughout their careers. This is our most important strategic priority. And I'd now like to introduce Professor Nikki Galache to discuss several initiatives that we are undertaking around student retention and graduation.
Thank you very much. I am the new faculty fellow for student success, and I want to begin by explaining a little bit about what it is. Student success initiatives have really taken off around the country, and our aim in student success is to make sure that students who start at UNH finish at UNH, and that they graduate as close to on time as possible, which we would like them to graduate in 4 years. Possibly it would take up to 6 years. Why do this? The biggest reason to do this is that I think people are looking at this as an ethical issue. Students who begin college, who take out loans, whose parents give them money, and who don't finish will end up with a debt burden that they don't have a college degree to help them resolve. They will have lower earning power than they would if they had the degree. Students also who have to go many additional semesters to finish also end up financially in the hole. So we're dedicated to our students, and we're dedicated to helping them get through this. From the university's point of view, we actually are doing pretty well. We have an 86% rate of graduation. Students who start here, 86% of them finish. And yet, nevertheless, if we could retain that additional 14% or a portion of them, that would also financially help the university. We would realize enrollments and tuition dollars through that success. So this is a very mutually beneficial program. What are we doing about student success here? The Provost's office in 2017 set up 4 committees made up of faculty, staff, and administrators to think about the best ways to address student success. And a number of these solutions are now being implemented, and I'm just going to highlight a couple of the ones that seem to be working best. One was that we discovered we were having melt. We would admit students, they'd accept and say they were going to come to UNH, and then they wouldn't show up. So the Dean of Students' office set up an initiative to engage with them over social media, to set up a more compelling orientation that creates school spirit, and to establish arrival programs that create community for students before they even get here. And in doing that, they have really slowed the melt and improved by several percentage points the number of students who actually come here. Another very important initiative is right now in pilot program. It is called a My Wildcat Success Program, which tries to track and intervene when students begin to falter academically. The point of this program is to alert students that they need to reach out to their teachers and advisors, and to note to advisors and deans they need to reach out to the students. The purpose of this then is to connect students to the resources they need to succeed, whether that be through CFAR, which is the Center for Academic Resources, or through their own colleges. And we've discovered that the early intervention works. And those students who go in for help, who get that support, are showing a marked improvement between perhaps struggles they had in the fall semester and intervention, and we're finding that they're improving almost by a whole GPA point by the time they're at the end of the second semester freshman year. So this has been very successful, and we're trying to expand it. There's a magic number, which is a GPA of 2.65. And once students achieve that GPA, their path to graduation is generally fairly good. Finally, one of our aspirational goals is to set up a university college. This would be a home for students at UNH who did not get into their first choice program, but need a place to reside where they can discover what they would like to do, perhaps seek a pathway into a program they didn't quite get into first time around, and foster support networks for both students who are undecided in major and also perhaps for transfer students who need a little help. So those are some of the successful initiatives we are embarking on at the moment. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Professor Galache. I'd now like to introduce a first-year student, Jake Monas, who has some personal experience with retention that he would like to share based on his recent experience with our Advising and Gateway course Early Warning Initiative. Jake.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you had asked me last semester, I would have thought I'd be the last student you want to speak at an event like this. I was really struggling, but I'm here today because of faculty and staff who saw that I need help and offered me a hand. I thought I'd share my story to show how UNH is helping to inspire students like me so that more of us will stay here in Durham and graduate. Early in my first semester, I was struggling in my classes, most notably my psychology class. Although I might not be the smartest kid, I have a great desire to do well for myself. That was when my professor and advisor, Zach Scola, reached out to me. He asked if I needed help, and when I told him I did, that's when things began to change for the better. He advised me to get in touch with Regina Smith-Adisano, who was the academic coordinator in the Provost's office. Regina worked with me to come up with a plan to get back up to speed in my academics. She sent me a ton of helpful information, including online practice questions and study guides. Today, we still stay in touch. Coming into college was a big adjustment, living in dorms, taking big classes, and even knowing how to study. I felt lost. But with the help of caring UNH faculty, I finally feel like I am adjusting. Leaving my meeting with Regina, I felt more confident, not only in myself, but in the faculty and staff around me. It's great knowing there are people here who want to help. I'm not going to stand up here today and tell you that I am acing all my classes. I am still struggling, but each day I am doing better. I'm getting better at studying, better at taking notes, and better at paying attention in class. I will get back on my feet and I will continue to improve. I truly hope my story encourages other students to reach out when they need help. Thank you, and I hope to see everyone in 4 years when I graduate.
As you know, we conducted a campus climate survey last year and presented the results. Among other issues, we were struck that a number of students are facing housing insecurity or food insecurity, and we've now formed a faculty and staff committee to bring together our efforts to help disadvantaged students and to make it easier for them to seek help. And finally, our Discovery curriculum is an important vehicle for promoting student success. Available at stations in this corner, over here, will be Vasu Vasudevan to discuss our student retention initiatives, Kathy Niels, Chris Shea, and Professor Monica Chu to discuss the campus climate survey, and Professors Scott Smith and Nikki Galache to discuss the Discovery curriculum revisions. I now call on Provost Wayne Jones to discuss our Expand Academic Excellence priority. Wayne.
Thanks, Jim, and welcome, everyone. I have to say I have no problem following the president, but following Jake makes me very nervous, I must admit. So expanding academic excellence is critical to the long-term success of UNH and frankly, any institution of higher education. This strategic priority focuses on attracting increasingly strong and diverse students and faculty from across the state, across the country, and around the world. How will we achieve this? We will achieve this by being known and respected for the high caliber of our teaching, our research, and our advising across all of our academic programs, as well as being known for our distinguished research, scholarship, doctoral education, and our commitment to helping the economy. There are several initiatives under this strategic priority. I'm going to mention just a few. Let me start with the honors program, an enhancement to the honors programs to create an honors college. This started with a proposal that came up through the Faculty Senate, and with the support of the Faculty Senate, we're now working on that directly. The goal is an interdisciplinary and holistic approach to the development of our best students, something that goes beyond just their major and becomes part of their lives. This is something our student wants. In addition, we're seeking to build a physical space, something co-located with the other UNH enrichment opportunities that our students have. Someplace not necessarily where they would live, since only about 40% of our honors students want to live in an honors college dorm, but more a place where they can share their experiences, engage with faculty, and work as teams. We want to have financial incentives to support these students and empower them to be successful in their honors program through scholarships or through other incentives that will help them take advantage of high-impact learning experiences. And then finally, we want to help them navigate the bureaucracy of the university from day one to make it easier for them to really optimize their curriculum, have more flexible engagement with the community, and to really find those things that are going to distinguish their career at UNH. Another initiative is in the area of faculty development and support. The growth of our academies, those academies such as our Writing Academy and our Advancing Leaders Academy. These are wonderful examples of how we want to help our faculty improve themselves and their career. We also want to help them with their teaching and working with CETL. We're looking at new opportunities, particularly for our Gateway course faculty, to help them make sure they're taking advantage of the latest in evidence-based teaching methods. We also want to look at how are we shaping our faculty. This year, we have well over 40 searches running as we speak, as we try and optimize where the faculty are needed to support our students and their academic careers, but also in terms of our scholarship and trying to distinguish ourselves on the worldwide stage of the academy. This coming year, we're in the process of having conversations about how we might be able to coordinate some of that hiring, particularly around our new health sciences initiative, which is being led out of HHS, and our biosciences initiative, which is coming together around the renovations to Spalding Hall. Finally, our faculty would like to ensure a commitment to increasing the diversity of our faculty. This past year, we created the Innovation and Diversity Postdoctoral Scholarship Program. This program is designed to bring in national representatives of students that have just gotten their PhD or maybe completed a first postdoc and bring them into the UNH community in a department and in a discipline where we anticipate a hire in a few years. The idea is not to guarantee them a job, but instead to give them a program and create a cohort of these diverse postdocs that are then positioned perfectly to be candidates for those positions. This year, I'm delighted to report that we had over 130 applications for 15 different potential opportunities spread across every college at UNH. We're hoping to land about 5 this year, and the way we've built this, we want to have 5 a year. So we have a steady cohort of these postdoctoral scholars. And then finally, I'd like to mention our Research 1 status. We were very, very proud when we were able to announce that a few years, I guess it was last year now. I'm sorry, I'm a scientist. I apologize for this chart. If you like the chart, it was my idea. If you don't like the chart, it was Harlan Spence that created it. Why don't you go to the next slide? There you go, okay. What that chart was an analysis of what goes into the Research 1 designation. Research 1 makes us one of the top 131 institutions in research productivity across the US, public, private, all institutions. Being in that cadre opens up the opportunity for additional funding streams, to recruit better students, to recruit better faculty. It really puts UNH on the national stage. But what do we need to do to stay there? If you looked carefully, you would have seen that we were not at the top of the R1 status. We were toward the bottom of the R1 status. The top 2 areas we need to focus on to maintain and grow and thrive within the R1 community. Number 1 is increasing our financial commitment to research and our research dollars per faculty member that we bring in. And it's important to note that all of our faculty contribute here. Our tenure track faculty, our research faculty are all contributing in this space. This past year we increased by about 5%. That's great. That would move us up 5 or 6 points within that ranking of R1. But as we saw earlier, our peers are moving too. So we have to keep working hard. The second thing we need to work on is our PhD production. To maintain and ensure that we're moving into the top echelon of R1, we need to be graduating well over 100 PhDs per year. We've been growing. We're up about 5% this year. This would bring us up another 5 or 6 positions within the R1 rankings, but our peers are moving. And so as we move forward, we want to keep working in this area. I will tell you in terms of PhD production, we've identified now that one of our areas where we can have a significant impact is in our social science PhDs. It's not just about STEM. Something else that I'll share is we've now made a commitment to look more carefully at the pathways. And behind Carrie Moorhead, our Dean of the Graduate Schools, we're trying to figure out how can we make sure that our graduate students are finding a more efficient path to the PhD, a shorter time to degree. That will free up more resources to bring in more PhD students. But we've also made a commitment, and I was very pleased that the Provost Council made the commitment that we're going to increase stipends for our graduate students for the next 2 years, continuing what is now going to be a 5-year tradition of increasing those stipends every year. Lots more to do.
Thank you, Provost Jones. Our final strategic priority is the one that makes it possible to pursue all the other priorities: build financial strength. Our aspiration here is that UNH will be a national leader in cost management and in aligning its budget and resources with our strategic priorities. UNH will become more accessible and more affordable for students. Thank you. So again, our goal is that UNH will become more accessible and more affordable for students. By diversifying revenue sources and managing expenses, UNH will meet the full range of student needs by providing world-class faculty, facilities, and organization. This slide shows the relationship among the strategic priorities. Building financial strength provides the resources needed to enhance student success and well-being, to expand academic excellence, and to embrace New Hampshire. This is why it is so crucial for the university to focus intensively on our financial condition. And I really wish the students had stayed to hear this part. This is why it's so crucial for the university to focus intensively on our financial condition. From the beginning of our strategic planning, we envisioned a deep dive into our financial structure so we could see how to free up resources for our strategic priorities. As you know, we decided to work with Huron Consulting to conduct this analysis. They have finished their work, and we recently posted on the web detailed slides with their methodology and their findings. So here are our next steps, rough timeline, and people responsible for each project. People leading teams in phase 1 have assembled their teams, or almost finished with assembling their teams, to identify and execute specific steps to take advantage of these findings. The team members will be identified on the Huron webpage. And as you can see, we're already working, actually you can see, but it's a little bit of an eye chart. We're working on several of these in the upper right-hand corner. Over the next few months, we'll focus on making sure that we find the savings we need to fund our strategies and to better pursue our core mission, ensuring effective communication to the campuses. And one way we're doing this is with 4 town hall meetings we've set up on all 3 campuses in the coming weeks. And you can see the locations and dates and times there on the slide. And finally, treating people whose lives may be affected with dignity, compassion, and respect. I certainly appreciate the concerns that people have about the potential impact of this effort on their jobs. I've heard from many of you on this score, and I promise you that I'll continue to listen and to be fully transparent as we move forward. I want to emphasize that our work on building financial strength will not rest entirely on personnel decisions. It will also rely on savings in other areas, and also new revenue streams, including a major new fundraising campaign, new public-private partnerships, expanded efforts to license our intellectual property, and other measures as well. In conclusion, the University of New Hampshire is healthy and enjoying success in many areas across the entire university and across our 3 campuses. We are well positioned to build on our accomplishments and to excel in ways that will make us even better, more robust, and prepared to excel in a rapidly changing world. It is an exciting time to be at the University of New Hampshire. We've identified a bold set of goals and have identified specific strategies and initiatives to achieve them. We have initiated a project to create additional resources to fund this effort, and we have very talented people to help us implement all of this. More broadly, the state of New Hampshire has increased our funding this year for the first time in many years, allowing us to hold tuition flat for undergraduate resident students. The Board of Trustees has made it a strategic priority to support UNH, our flagship public institution. As Wayne talked about, we've achieved the highest possible research designation in the Carnegie classifications. So I believe that the best days of the University of New Hampshire are ahead of us. And as you talk to your friends and colleagues across New Hampshire, I hope that you can share this message of optimism. And on that note, I'm happy to discuss any questions that you would like to pose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Dean. I'm Professor Jim Farrell, Communication Department. I have 2 questions about the Huron report that you referenced and that was distributed to all employees. with all its almost impenetrable business lingo that turns ordinary verbs like spend into nouns and seems to be composed with a corporate buzzword generator yielding expressions like opportunity, prioritization, methodology. In any case, my first question is about accountability. In most of the places where the Huron study found wasteful spending or organizational inefficiencies, it's clear that these problems have resulted not from the labor and effort of ordinary rank and file UNH employees, but rather from the decisions or frankly sometimes incompetence of various university administrators. Ordinary employees, for example, don't make decisions about organizational structure or institutional-wide procurements. Yet from various media reports about the Huron study, it seems that any looming layoffs will mainly impact rank and file UNH employees. And from the final pages of the Huron report, it appears that many of the administrators who were responsible for creating some of the problems are now to be put in charge of implementing the proposed solutions to those problems. But how is that holding senior administrators accountable for creating institutional policies and structures that caused the financial inefficiencies the Huron group exposed? And my second question, if I could, is about the scope of the Huron analysis. In an interview with the Seacoast Media Group, you are quoted as saying, "There will be no sacred cows when it comes to implementing the Huron recommendations." Yet there's no indication in the final Huron report and no mention at all in any of the preliminary weekly reports that the UNH athletic department was subject to the same kind of deep dive cost-benefit analysis that the other units, especially academic units, were subject to. The Huron report does say that one chief reason accepted students decide not to enroll at UNH is the total cost to attend after scholarships. We also know that the student athletic fee adds a mandatory $1,075 per year to the cost of every undergraduate student. And yet, in contracting with Huron, someone in the UNH administration decided the investigation should not include a look at the spend of athletics or their organizational inefficiencies or the cost-saving opportunities of that department. Why?
So that was a lot. I'll try to do my best to respond to it. So in the first part, none of this is really about blaming anyone for anything. What we're trying to do, and I tried to say this in my talk, is we're trying to free up resources that we can direct toward the core academic mission of the university. How we got to where we are, it's not really our focus. Many of the people who probably made the decisions that you've talked about are long gone. It's been going on over a long period of time, but I'm not here and none of us are here really to blame anybody. What we're to do, and in fact, I don't know that those words that you used are really even in the report. What we've said is, what the report says is that other universities seem to be able to spend less money in certain areas than we are, and we're going to look into it and find out whether we could spend less money in those areas and take that money, take that money and move it into academic priorities. So that's what we're about. And on the second one, yeah, I think you raise a good point about athletics, and I think we do need to take a look there as well. So I think point taken. Other questions? They don't all have to be quite that long. They can be shorter questions too. Yes, sir. Can we get a mic for this young man? No, people aren't going to be able to hear you. There's a mic coming.
Hi, sure thing. Luke, student worker, English major here. I've taken a brief look at the Huron report in addition to other news sources. In the past, 23 lecturers were fired in the past 3 years, 18 of which were lecturers fired in 2018, according to reports from Boston.com and nhpr.org. And I was wondering how if this is a viable business strategy, if this is part of what will compensate for graduating students and gets, and how this will address my concerns as a student who has been having lecturers, having a lecture, and not having the continued resources of that lecturer. No?
So is the question about the nature of the faculty and the combination of lecturers and tenure track faculty?
Primarily how this builds into the Huron Report's question of academic success, like continual academic excellence for us as students.
Okay. All right, so the question was about how the Huron Report focuses on academic excellence, and most of what Provost Jones talked about this afternoon falls into that category. Certainly, any resources we're able to free up through the Building Financial Success, our Building Financial Strength, will be directed toward academic strength. That could be through investing in certain departments. It could be through faculty hiring. It could be in things like the Innovation and Diversity postdoctoral program. It could be financial aid to try and reduce the burden of students to come to UNH, which, as the first questioner said, is certainly high. So really, any money that we free up is going to be redirected into academic areas, and that's really the point of it. And most of it is going to be, I suppose, identified with expanding academic excellence. All right, if there are, yes, here we go. Hold on, wait for the mic, please.
I just wanted to know, is there a place on the website where your vision is laid out as an actual strategic plan with objectives and specific goals? Because I couldn't find one, and I wanted to know how the Huron Report kind of meshed with that.
Right, so thank you for that. I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
Strategic vision and the priorities that you've laid out are a good overview, but I'd really like to know what the specifics are.
I think all the specifics that we have are on the website. So it's the aspiration to be among the top 25 public universities. It's the list of specific metrics on which we're going to try and be among the top 25. It's how they're measured. If you click through on them, you can also see the data source for them. You can also see which universities we're comparing ourselves against. You can see the list of the top, I'm not sure if, I guess it's of all universities on each metric. You can see the nature of the strategic priorities, what those priorities mean, and we read some of that language today. We also have the series of initiatives that are identified on the website, and we've explained a bit more today about what those initiatives are and what we're doing to try and achieve those goals. So those are the specifics that we have. As we have new specifics, for example, the members of the teams, the progress of the teams that we've identified, money that's saved, how it's redirected, that will all be on the website as well. So we are not withholding anything. Anything about this project is really going to be on there. All right, well, I promised you that I would reserve some time at the end for you to visit with the people at the various tables, and I'd love to be able to do that now. So we have Expand Academic Excellence over here, Embrace New Hampshire over here, on my left, Build Financial Strength, and over here, Enhance Student Success and Well-Being. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Whoops, what? A question? Last question.
So a couple days ago on NHPR, it was mentioned that, I forget the exact wording, but it was UNH is experiencing financial difficulties and most likely or will conduct layoffs. Since then, there has been a lot of murmuring about where those layoffs could be. Is it facilities? Is it the library? And so I appreciate your statement about wanting everyone to feel positive towards the future, and I want to feel that way as well. But when there are little leaks without transparency and without actual information, I feel like that is dangerous because people get scared and then start to question and and speculate, and that's where rumors begin. And so I feel like there is not transparency to help us all try to be positive.
So thank you for that question. I think that's a good question. So let me tell you how that came about. So we sent out the Huron information, all the slides that you commented about. And we had a meeting of the President's Leadership Council shortly after that, and many of the deans came back and said, what everybody wants to know is there likely to be layoffs? And we felt that in the interest of transparency, we really had to answer that question. And so we said, yeah, there probably will be. And we are mostly a service organization. We're not a manufacturing organization. Our organization is entirely people. And so if we're going to try and save money, yes, it is likely that we're going to have some reductions. Now, we do have a lot of people turn over every year as a matter of course. And it could be that much of the reduction in force could be managed through that kind of attrition, but I don't know that for sure. And so I think in a way, maybe we were too transparent because I said something is likely to happen without being able to say exactly when or who or how or where. And I still can't say that because, as you know, the teams that are doing the work have not yet begun to meet. As soon as they have met and as soon as they have made recommendations and as soon as we've acted on those recommendations, you will know. But there's no secret plan. This is interesting. It's really the one thing that people have asked me about the most, and I appreciate it. I really do appreciate the angst and concern that causes among faculty, among the students who are here, and so on. It's our responsibility to try and use the resources that we have to educate our students and conduct our research as effectively as possible. That's really what we're trying to do. We are telling you everything that we know at this point about what's likely to happen. That's all I can really say. On that happy note, I invite you to visit the tables. Thank you.